Okay, awesome. All right, so to get started, we're going to talk about college is an option, and what does inclusive higher education for students with intellectual and developmental disabilities look like. So I have notes here, so I'm going to kind of be, you'll see slides going from there. Yes, let me move it over. And to kind of go over our agenda today, we're going to be hitting on four main points of college and what that looks like. What is an inclusive higher education? What do those look like? What to look for when selecting a program? Looking at college options. What are your must-haves, your not must-haves when selecting a college, and then to highlight an inclusive education opportunity would be ACIT in college. So I want to spend some time giving you an example of one, and then also some tips and tricks of how to prepare for college, how to work with your students or your family members, clients, friends, how to help these individuals as they prepare to go into college and into that next stage and that transition piece. So to get started, I wanted to kind of use the chat as a chance to talk about why college. In thinking about your own life, if you had gone on after high school for college, 4-year community college, technical school, a professional certification, anything after college, why did you go to college? Why did you go on to get that additional training? If you want to use the chat window to kind of throw out some ideas of what was it that motivated you to go to college. I'd love to hear from y'all. Job opportunities. And I'm going to take some notes so I have some themes to kind of hit on. Thank you, Charlene. Teacher. So you needed that formal training then. Better life. Okay. I feel like that's what college is all about, right? Stuffing of no idea what to do after high school. So you went on to go on, use languages. So improve language, be able to use both languages, professional growth, better job opportunities. Yeah. Anyone else? For me, part of going to college was getting 6 hours away from my family. So I relocated to Northeast Tennessee after I graduated from high school. And it was that, like, I needed to fly the coop. I needed to go spread my wings. My mom always joked that she didn't. She always raised us to not be afraid to travel. And then my brother and I both flew, and she was like, oh man, I raised you too well on that. And so going to college was about traveling in that experience. So there's a lot of great things, and we've hit on pretty much all my slides here of what we want to do. Somebody talked about that professional job opportunity, number 5, better money opportunities, those critical skills. Going to be a teacher, you need to have that formal training. I'm a social worker by trade, and I needed that formal training to go through that. Those networks, better life. You build friendships and connections with people in college that you wouldn't have been exposed to in other settings. I think we find our best, some of our best friends and some of our best, human connection happens when you live so close or around so many people every day like that. Those independence, not knowing what to do after school finished, you got to figure out how to be independent, where that goes from there. Those social executive function, employability skills. How many of us, when we went to college, we actually learned how to be an adult and how to, function with that? All of these things are reasons why college is so important for everyone, and college is so important for individuals with intellectual or developmental disabilities. They are going to gain all of these experiences just like you and I did when we went to college. And so it's really important to make college as an option for students and for individuals, and talking about that with them. So to kind of go over that overview of what is inclusive higher education, that is programs that provide individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities access to college. And before, it wasn't always something that they could access. And in 2008, the Higher Education Opportunity Act was signed, and that was, it created a doorway, it created a pathway for college opportunities. It created what is called as TIPSID funding. And TIPSID funding was more like a nest egg of funding, a funding source, so that programs like ACIT and other programs across the state could get going. You didn't have to have a TIPSID to be an official TIPSID to have a program. It just kind of, it came with a lot of additional resources and benefits of doing that. It emphasized that integrated, inclusive academic success and access, on-campus experiences in the classroom with other students that are attending the same university or program, and with a goal of that competitive integrated employment. Getting a job after college and keeping a job, and a job that you like, a job that you want to be in. The Higher Education Opportunity Act opened up access to financial dollars, to financial aid. That could be through the Pell Grant, through supplemental education opportunity grants, and federal work study. All things that you could use and access when you go to college, because college, unfortunately, is expensive. There comes with a lot of additional costs with it. And so having those programs out there and those financial resources are crucial to access college. It also created the comprehensive training programs, the CTP. And what that looks like is different. It gives it just that credential behind it, that this is accredited and it's the right kind of program. Finally, one of the other things that kind of came out of those movements is you saw Think College forming. And Think College is a national coordinating center that goes across the US, and it's about accessing information about inclusive opportunities for individuals with intellectual or developmental disabilities. And so they've also created some amazing resources. This is one of their resources. This is a map of all of the programs currently since November of 2020 out there for students. And there's one in every state, which is really exciting. You can see there are 3 programs in Virginia. And when I started with ACIT about 5 years ago, there were 200, I want to say like 60, 270 programs. And so, there's growth. It's happening. It's a movement. I would love to see it catch on even more, but it's a movement. People are understanding that inclusive higher education programs, they bring a richness to the campus. They bring a richness to the classroom. It's a win-win for everybody across the board. And so it's slowly catching on. And so I'm hoping that the next time we present, we can say there's 600 programs. So we can really see that growth happening. But Jacqueline, I put this slide up too, and just to kind of share, Think College is one of the best resources out there that, from a capture, kind of sense of their training programs for, there's training opportunities in there for professionals, for students to kind of jump in on. We have contributed to that. We had an education coach, which I'll talk about in a bit. She created a whole webinar series that Think College partnered with her to do about how to be a peer support on a college campus. And so there's a whole just list of opportunities, and I am not a representative of Think College or an employee, but we always want to highlight what is out there on their website. One of my favorite resources on the Think College website is they have a really great search tool of, going on a college search, and you can say, I want to live on campus. I want a part-time program. I want to be in these states. And it'll kind of populate out what those programs look like, and then links to those programs. And so sitting down with a student or a family member and talking about that, of what that looks like, is always a great opportunity and a great way for them to interact and see what are their choices out there. And then that kind of jumps into, what do we look for in a college program? When I sat down, I said I wanted to travel. I wanted to be away from my family. So I was immediately looking at programs out of my state. When you sit down with someone, do they want to live at home and go to school? Do they want to, do they want to live on campus? And so different programs offer different areas. And so sitting down and kind of teasing out, what are my must-haves, what are I could deal with that, and what are my absolute no's. Does your program have a certain diploma type that you need to have for admission? Looking at, what are those goals? Every inclusive higher education program kind of has a different goal. Is it, are they really focusing on those employment goals? Are you looking at improving your independent living skills, your social skills? Kind of tease out what it is. We recently just finished our application search for ACIT, and it was interesting that when we were going through the interview process with students, some students, it was like, are we the right fit for you? Is ACET the right fit for you, or are you the right fit for ACET? And, bringing that to the table. And so much of a college search is really looking at, am I going to thrive what I need to thrive at my college and, at this university and program. And so really looking at what that's good for. Kind of lumped down in the bottom is that outcome data. And I see a question here, Charlene. So I'll pause what I'm saying. What about programs for students with developmental disabilities like autism? So one of the questions, developmental disabilities like autism, we have a lot of students that are on the spectrum at ACET. So it depends a lot on your diploma type. So if the student with autism might have a standard diploma, you might want to look at universities that have really strong disability support services. There are some universities across the states that have, kind of really tailored into that. If a student has more of a modified or non-standard diploma, they might need to look at one of the TIPSID kind of programs like ACET that's not a non-degree seeking program. But there's definitely some good resources. Are there a specific area in mind that you were thinking, Charlene, or any follow-up to that?
You answered the question about the diploma type. So when we talk about diploma type, I'm talking about students who typically have an average to above average cognitive ability and plan on, graduating with a degree. However, through my own research, there's not many programs. I found a couple throughout the country. Marshall has an excellent program, but again, not one that is consistent, because again, I think the problem lies with a student who cognitively can pass a course, but has those executive functioning skill weaknesses that are difficult to translate maybe to college professors, right? And the typical accommodations don't really work, because extended time is not really helpful if you can't actually turn in your assignments.
Yeah. And it's a few years, well, I guess I should say pre-COVID, I felt like a lot of universities were really, it was catching on. Like I would go to different conferences and I would hear disability support offices talk about how do we improve those supports on campus, or create entire programs. I know, specifically at VCU, there is a huge, there's been a big push with neurotypical kind of clubs and groups forming. I know at the VCU DSS office, or they call themselves the SAO office, they have a calming room that it was student-led. Students who are on the spectrums, or just advocates and allies of students, kind of said, we need a space on campus that we can come to. And so VCU had kind of they used an office area to create that area. I know with COVID that is not able to be accessed right now. But, there are resources that are coming. I don't know how COVID has shifted that landscape. So I think, with a student who is on a more standard diploma, when you're looking at those resources, I think really tailoring in, like reaching out to the DSS office and saying, hey, how many students do you have, who have this, who have this diagnosis too? Like, what are your resources? How can you help me? Because students get to interview and families get to interview colleges. Like, why should I give you my money? Why should I come here? And, and colleges are realizing that they have to figure out a way to work with a lot of diverse learners, and how that changes. So it's really fun and exciting to see that. I've completely blanked on some of the other programs around, but I can follow up with you on some of the other programs that are happening. There is on, so at ACET is with the Center on Transition Innovations at VCU, and we did a series a few years ago related to they call it like the spectrum of possibilities. I can get the link and send it out with my follow-up email. But it's students that have shared their experiences, more traditional students, like one was achieving a graduate degree in math. And then it's also the professor's experiences of having a student on there. And so I can send that link out with it. It's an older video series that we did, but it was really fascinating to hear from. It has a family component. a counselor component, student voices, and then professor component, sharing those experiences. So I highly recommend it. And I think that really leads into that final point of the outcome data. When individuals are looking at colleges that work for them, you want to see what I'm giving you this money, I'm giving this university this money, what has been the success, like how is the retention rate of students that come into the program? How are they successful? What does success look like afterwards? Is it related to improvement of quality life? Do they have increases in independent living, employment outcomes? I think it's important to know that stuff, because that's what's going to help lead into a richer life after college. So when you're looking at those colleges and those programs, asking those harder questions: what are your employment outcomes? What is your retention level? What are your, why should my student, why should my child, why should my client come meet you all? Like what is that about? Because that's just as vital as everything else. And so, yes, I can definitely have that. I will send it to you guys. And so those are all important things in looking for a college, and kind of teasing those out and thinking about it. Another resource that Jacqueline has further down that I'll make sure gets highlighted is we have a video or a free online training called Going to College, and it's different modules, and so you can walk through it, and it's for students across all disabilities, of like how to explore and what does college options look like for you all. So now, as I like to joke, this is where I get to be extremely biased, because I love this program and I get to highlight our ACET in College program. And this is just one example of a inclusive higher education program. This one's in Greater Richmond, in Virginia. And so I get a chance to talk to you all about ACET and those opportunities. But before I talk a whole lot, I want to share Ashley's story, and I'm going to do a new share to make sure I have added the sound. So let me fix that real fast. Okay, so we should be able to hear Ashley now. As much as you all are probably loving hearing me ramble on and on, I like to take a break and let people have a chance to hear from a student, because that's what it's all about. You want to hear from a student about their college experience. And Ashley is a ACET alumni who I'm even more biased with Ashley because I was her academic advisor. And when I met Ashley, she was an incredible speaker and very confident young woman. But to watch over the 2 years of her at the program, watch her just soar and really grow into that young professional that she is today. So it's been a great opportunity, and that's not where we're going to go. Let's see. She changed that up on me. Okay. Should see.
That face that is usually covered by her phone has finally made an appearance. That face wouldn't be doing that if you weren't staying at a Verbo Lake House. Your together awaits.
All right.
I just love VCU ACET College program because it gives me a chance to experience life as a college student. It's a 2-year program for people with intellectual disabilities, and we go to classes. We have education supports, peer supports, who we get to hang out with. During the past years, my internships were at the VCU Library, Public Affairs, and this year I'm working at the Federal Reserve Bank here in Richmond. This one is a picture of my family. I do all team stuff, shredding and filing. It gives me a chance to increase my skills. I love every project that Logan gives me. After work, my lovely parents take me to the VC campus. Sometimes I go to Starbucks and get my favorite drink, which is the Syrup Strawberry. Then I head out to the 4th floor Yellowstone, then I went into 145 to head a class. The class helped me learn more about poetry and fiction.
You must inspire people.
I do, yes.
How does that make you feel?
It makes me feel great.
I'm gonna close. That's the one.
Do you have a passion for animals, medicine, and science, and enjoy working with people? As a vet.
Sorry about that. Let's talk about technology fail today. All right, now everybody's wide awake. So to kind of, before we jump in a little bit, what are your reactions to that video? Like what did you think of seeing Ashley? Any takeaway questions from Ashley's experience? And I could talk about Ashley all day long. So she's one of my favorite alumni. She
turn your microphones off too to comment. I mean, you can talk if you want instead of entering everything in the chat.
Are you all spellbound? Ashley was a student that she came into college very articulate and wanted to. She had some career goals, but she didn't know exactly what she wanted. And so giving her an opportunity at ACET, she mentioned those different career opportunities, those career jobs that she looked at. She worked at the VCU library. We noticed that, she really did like clerical work. She liked working in an office. She liked that opportunity to interact. She's very social. She talks about that. And so she had taken a class on Excel spreadsheets. It was a one credit class related to spreadsheets and kind of getting really down into the minute details. She can do stuff with a spreadsheet that I still can't do. But she really enjoyed doing that. And so we had reached out to public affairs and was chatting with them, and they had a need in their social media department of wanting to look at really exploring and having a student. And so Ashley ended up working at the public affairs office. And the thing that Ashley showed, and a lot of our other students have shown in each of the different departments across campus, is they're like, oh, this project might take a week or two. Ashley finished it in a day. And so Ashley ran spreadsheets for multiple different projects, and Ashley would input data across all of these spreadsheets. And a lot of those skills is what helped her set up as she went to work at the Federal Reserve Bank. And when she started at the Federal Reserve Bank, fun story, they'd said, we won't be able to hire her after graduation. This will just be her paid internship. And then as graduation approached, they were like, retract that. We want to hire her. And so Ashley, after graduation, went on to work at the Federal Reserve Bank until COVID. And then she was furloughed, during that. And so she has not gone back to work just yet. She has health problems and concerns. And so they're still kind of working out what that looks like for Ashley. But, she loved working at the Federal Reserve. It's fun. Whenever I would chat with her after graduation about how she's doing, she would say, I would say, what are you doing at work? And she's like, I can't tell you that. That's confidential. That's classified. So she takes her job very seriously and is an incredible, incredible young woman. Like I said, I'm very biased about Ashley. So what is ACET? What is this program that I keep rambling about? ACET is 5 to 7 semesters. It changes we have 2 different tracks that students can take depending on funding streams. So students are in classes for 3 semesters, for 3 academic semesters. So for a year and a half, they're taking classes as well as working on campus. And then in that final semester, it's an internship component. And so they may take an academic class if needed, but it's mostly that final kind of semesters is gearing towards work. And so they're taking a internship, and then they're also taking an internship class where they talk about those experiences, grow on advocating on the workplace, talking about workplace accommodations, how to negotiate, your salary, how to do your resume, practice those interviewing skills, and really dive into that. ACET is a part-time program, so we are non-residential. We wanted to match the suburban, you're not suburban, the, you know, the atmosphere of VCU. VCU is right on an urban campus, and you know, and a lot of students are part-time, and we wanted to make it as equitable as we could possibly make it for students to access it. So we are a part-time program. We're inclusive. ACIT students are sitting right next to a biology major or a teaching major or somebody in the School of Engineering, a nursing major. We are in the same classes. They're sitting side by side with their peers. They're choosing classes out of the VCU catalog that match their career goals. We're collaborative. We want to work with as many departments as we can across the university and outside of the university. We work with both campuses. So VCU is divided over 2 campuses. There's the medical campus and the academic campus. And so we collaborate across both of those campuses, across different departments for class opportunities. So students that have interest in different areas, they take classes all around. And then they also take the job opportunities that they go into. We're employment driven. One of the things I love about ACIT when I came in is that we talk about your job, we talk about your calling, we talk about your career, we talk about those passions from the first meeting, from our person-centered planning meeting that we have. What is it that you see yourself doing in 10 years? What are your favorite things to do at work? What's going to get you up and motivated and excited about your workday? And how all of that is driving the bus for your goals. What classes will help you attain those? What job experiences on campus will help you get to that? And we are a CTP, a comprehensive transition program. So we have that kind of accreditation at the end. There's kind of stamp. This kind of dives into a lot of stuff that I'm also going to talk about. And so it just kind of shows you that pathway to career, that students are auditing courses. They have an education coach, which I'll dive into a little bit deeper, an academic advisor, which is me. While they have all those academic components, there's also an employment piece that's talking about those campus jobs, their internships, employment supports, their career advisors. But they're not just going to class and going to a job. Students at ACIT have a student life. They have access to the resources. When I was giving the tour to students the other day, we were walking by the gym, and I was like, we didn't go into any of the buildings because of COVID, and we just wanted to be as safe as we could. But we were walking by, and I was like, you are a VCU student. You would have access to the gym as the same as any other student. You just swipe your card to go in. And there's a climbing wall. There's, the basketball courts. And the student just stopped and was like, I can go play basketball with my friends. And I'm like, yeah, that's what you do when you go to college. There's a lot that they access. We've had students that go on, outdoor adventure trips that are planned through the university, just jumping in on it. We have access to the peer mentors. So we have a program where VCU students can volunteer to hang out with ACIT students. And sometimes it might be for volunteer hours through a class, a leadership class, or different areas. Some students just have something they did in high school, or, they have family members and they just want to get connected. And all that is it's really just a way for ACIT students to connect with another college student. They might have lunch together. They could just go study together. We've had students go to basketball games together. Housing options. So for housing options, we are Greater Richmond. We kind of serve the Greater Richmond area. We don't have any on-campus housing options through ACIT. Other programs do. I think Mason Life has a living kind of component. We've seen families get really creative and look at, roommates. We had a student that had a roommate for a semester, and then he, I think for finances, had moved back home. We've had students live with siblings. We have a student currently living with a sibling, because she was already attending ACIT, or she was already attending VCU. And so when brother was ready to go to college, he's like, I'm going to VCU with my sister. And so they both live together there. We've had just different opportunities there. So yeah, so it's not something we as a program support. We don't help you find the roommates just because of programmatically we can't, we don't have the infrastructure to support that housing component. But we definitely can share creative ideas that other students have used in the past. We've had students that live out in further out in like Midlothian, they take public transportation in, and they use like the GRTC to come in. So yeah. And then kind of moving forward from there, you have those academic and career plans, and we're constantly assessing with the student, is this the right career that you're interested in? I'm seeing this, we have what we call team meetings every semester, where the student leads the meeting and kind of helps what's going really well, what needs to be improved, what needs to be worked on, how do I need to succeed, who's in my corner, what are my goals? So kind of breaking those down, and to break down those academic pieces. So this is the part I could talk about all day because I'm the academic advisor. ACES students take 21 credits, and what that looks like is very different based on each student. We really fine tune those classes to match those career goals. And so, we have those required classes that they take. They'll take Intro to University. They're going to take an effective speech class. They're going to take their internship class. We're going to have them take a class within their sciences, or in science, language, social sciences. But what that class actually looks like is very unique. So for instance, we have the student that's living with a relative or a sibling. They want to work in computer science. That is their career goal. That is their career interest. That is their passion. And they have a lot of aptitude in that area. So for a language class, for that kind of like social science languages, well, let's look at Python, which is a coding software. Let's look at some of those coding as a language, coding as that. And so really diving in what their classes they take match those career goals. We have a student who really is enjoying customer service. It's not what she'd come into, but she really interacts well with students and individuals. Her on-campus job the last 2 semesters have been related to kind of a customer service role. But she likes to learn with her hands. And so we're looking at a class for her next semester that's not really in her career wheelhouse, but it is going to give her that opportunity to interact with others, the chance to do teamwork activities, the chance to learn with her hands. So she's going to be working on a stagecraft, which is learning about set design for plays and stuff. So, kind of fine tuning and seeing what it is that the student needs and kind of adjust from there. They take VCU courses. Our students are taking VCU courses across both campuses. I said we've had 288 unique different courses taken by students, and so that could be in the School of Social Work, could be in the nursing over on the medical campus in like an intro to nursing kind of medical terminology class. We've had students in accounting. We've had a student in a business class. We as academic advisors partner and reach out and connect with all of the different units across campus to get overrides for classes to go. And I've kind of already talked a lot about those courses support career goals. We want to find what works in that area. So on the employment side, so students in ACET have paid campus employment. So for those 3 semesters, they're working on campus, and they're getting paid either through federal work study, or some departments have money set aside that they use to pay student workers. These are developed based on their interests and availability with their career advisor. So where I am as an academic advisor, the flip side of me is a career advisor, and they're with the student from beginning to end, related to their career goals. They're going to do practice interviews throughout the semester, communicating with that employer, working with their accommodations letter, walking through all of those different steps. And campus jobs have looked like anywhere from Ashley in the public affairs office. We've had students that worked in facilities management, doing quality checks where a student wanted a job where she was moving and outdoors and active, and the facilities office is like, we have a serious need to like kind of check the ADA compliance, like we've got to get this done this year. And so part of her job for the semester was she literally went all over campus and touched every single elevator button, touched every single wheelchair door, like the little the ramp access, touched everything around campus to check to see if these things worked, and then had a system in place where she notified if something wasn't working. And when that student came on campus in the beginning of the year, she had no way. Moving around and navigating independently was very not familiar for her. And so by the end of her semester, I would ask her how to get around because she knew every nook and cranny of VCU. And if you've been around VCU, you know that's a pretty big place. So it's, we work on what those interests and availabilities are. Moving into that final semester, they have that paid internship experience. And so we work with local community. Jacqueline always points out that internships could be paid or unpaid. It kind of matches in that field of career interest. She has a background in education. And so a lot of education internships, practicums are unpaid experiences. So sometimes that matches. It just really depends on the community partner we have. So we are always upfront that the internship is not always a paid experience. We try as hard as we can to make as much paid experiences as possible, because that is where the data shows that paid work experience has such longevity across the lifespan for individuals and teaching those big skills. And then post-graduation, this is what I talked about, depending on those the 5 to 7 semesters, what that looks like differently. There is an optional 2 additional semesters of employment supports. And so that would be working with our employment team and working afterwards. That is typically for students that are in private pay options versus other funding streams. And it really focuses in on finding and maintaining of those appointments. This is for folks that are not connected to DARS traditionally. So just kind of what that looks like. And before I mentioned, finding out from a program, what is your outcome? What are your numbers? What do things look like? 88% of our graduates obtain competitive integrated employment after graduation. And we're really proud of that number. Employment is throughout the backbone of this program. And so we want to see students succeed and hear from students who have been working in their same job or have moved on to even better jobs. They've moved up at a facility or, they found a different job somewhere else. And so we want to hear about those career outcomes for them. 86% of students and families have described an improved quality of life. And we also have seen aggregated improvement on reading assessments. So what that has looked like is more, we do a reading assessment at different stages throughout the program. And we've seen students make strides in reading. It might be more in comprehension or just in vocabulary. I had a student a few years ago, his dad was like, he says all these new words, he's like, he uses words I have to look up. Like his vocabulary has just drastically increased since just being on campus and surrounded by peers and working on academic articles, all of that stuff. So who are ACET students? ACETs, to be an applicant, ACET, we say 18 years or older. They reside in the Greater Richmond area at the time of application, a high school diploma with an applied studies or modified standard, or are still in high school receiving special education services. Documented intellectual disability, traumatic brain injury, autism, or multiple disabilities, and prepared to financially meet the VCU tuition and fees costs to participate in the program. So that's kind of our areas there. And there's a few more. ACET students have career employment, experiences. They have career goals. They want to go to college. They want to learn. They want to, move on. College equals career. We are strong believers that college is a pathway to careers, and that they are prepared for the differences between high school and college. And I mentioned before about that Get Ready for College course. So there's a free online course that we kind of encouraged students to take over the summer before they come in about just getting ready for college. What is different about high school? Like your IEP does not come to college with you. What does that look like? Students who have strong self-determination, students who have a support system or want to build their support system, that independence, you have that drive in a student to see them, I want to be independent. I want to learn how to do these things. Same any college applicant, I want to learn how to stand on my own 2 feet, that drive in them. Cell phone and technology use, students that already have that background experience, it's always a big plus to have that. So this kind of goes over our program cost. We said before, college isn't cheap. I wish it were cheap. I wish it was very affordable and very equitable in that area. But students that come to ACET are responsible for all university tuition and fees. They're assessed the traditional tuition for each enrolled course. They're responsible for a specific ACET program fees that go towards academic employment supports. So we have the VCU Board of Visitors just approved the new tuition rates. And so on our website, if you go to acit.vcu.edu, you can see what ACIT in college, and I can put up our website here in a minute, acitincollege.org will take you to what those fees and everything look like. But, looking back to what are college associated costs, and there are different ways that you can pay for college. There are college savings account. You can use your Virginia 529 or an ABLE account. ABLE funds can be used for college, for ACIT, or in other kind of programs. There are community scholarships, nowhere near enough. I wish there were more. A really strong one is Ruby's Rainbow. If you know of anybody that, just as a sidebar, the Ruby's Rainbow Scholarship does close this Sunday. So if you have any students or individuals with Down syndrome looking for higher education opportunities or training programs, that is a great scholarship that's out there. And I highly recommend people checking it out. DARS is a funding source. They are, it's dependent on the program. So financial aid and DARS is dependent on the program. So, it's not a guaranteed funding source, but it's conversations you want to have with your DARS counselors. There is an ACIT in College Scholarship Fund that we have been very blessed to have been able to start, and we grow on it every year as best we can. And that is specific to ACIT students. So they can apply for the ACIT scholarship once during their time with the program. But shifting gears back to how to prepare, how to get ready to go to college, that, what does that look like so that you're a strong applicant into any inclusive program across the country? Get critical experiences, get those opportunities where you're included in classes and activities, on camp, in high school, out of high school, through faith-based opportunities. Get those work experiences, even volunteer work experiences, paid work experiences. Get those opportunities where you have worked around others, self-care and independent living skills. What are the chores at home? That's one of our interview questions. What do you do around the house to help? What are your chores? So, I take care of breakfast every morning. I'm responsible for the dishes. Those self-advocacies and self-determination skills. There's so many great resources through I'm Determined and other things across the state and the Commonwealth of how do you work on your self-advocacy? How do you work on standing up for yourself, running your IEP meetings, kind of bringing those things to the table when you go to college. Research the programs, learn more, and you set those goals. Take tours. A really great thing that's happening right now, I think it's still on there, is VCU has a virtual tour of its campus. So if you have a student or a family member that's maybe under 14, that college is still a few years away, take advantage right now of going and exploring colleges to see if they still have virtual tour options. Let them go see a big campus. If you live near a campus, maybe not your college campus that you think your student could go to, but go explore, go beyond the campus, go just feel that environment of the noises that you have on campus, of the cars going by, if it's more of an urban campus. Go understand the differences between the different programs. CTI has a lot of college resources. Come check out our website. Talk to your counselors and your IEP teams and those post-secondary education goals. Put on your transition IEP that you want to go to post-secondary education. Put these goals down, so that way people are aware of them and know that this is something that's important to me. And get your materials together. And so students complete FAFSA, which is the financial aid. And I am totally blanking on all the wonderful things FAFSA stands for at the moment, but get your documentation together for your accommodations. So as you are graduating high school, get that packet together of what you might need to show a DSS office, documentation about your accessibility needs and your accommodation needs. On the IEP, write down what are those accommodations. Work with the individual to say, these are the ones that really worked for me. If these are the ones I want to be able to access later on in life, and this is what's worked for me here, and everything else. Know what your living arrangements are going to look like. Plan for that transportation. I mentioned a student that uses the GRTC, and that's what they did. They worked out a plan, and they worked over the summer to use travel training through the GRTC to ride the bus. And so by the time school came around, completely independent on getting to and from campus from 45 minutes away. So just rode the bus in every morning. We had another student that ended up doing that, and it was kind of funny because I had a colleague that he also rode the bus in. He lived out out a little ways. And so one day he was sitting on the bus and he looked up and there was this, one of our students who was also riding the bus and riding in that day. And so just like, just get ready to be that training, understanding the financial part. One thing that we are seeing is that a lot of students sometimes are first generation. And so kind of really navigating and learning, what does it mean to pay to go to college, and having that plan in place, so that you'll be successful. So it's just some of those resources that we wanted to share. The Think College, thinkcollege.net. It's great resources all around. The Center on Transition Innovations has the Get Ready for College student course. We have another student course that's out there as well, and Get Ready for Career. And then we have one about Get Ready for Independent Living. I think that's in the works right now. I'm not on that team developing it at the moment. So, but those are some great resources. There's some great resources for teachers and other professionals. I highly recommend checking them all out. They're all free. Some are self-paced, some are facilitated. And then the ACE in College website, where there's some more information. So kind of done talking. I'm glad to still see there's people over here. I want to unmute yourselves, use the chat window. What questions do you still have? How can I help answer any of those questions moving forward? And I actually don't even know the time.
Yeah, I actually have a question.
Okay, what's your question?
So basically, our son is 9 years old, and so we are really working hard with him now. He basically can't sit still right now. He has to have one-on-one to attend to a task in school and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
So we really want to know if you have any success stories maybe of a child that may have been in that situation, and then as you've heard, they have really have a goal to go to college, and then you actually saw that come true.
Yeah. I have a couple students to me that kind of jump to mind about, like, they never really thought college was going to be an opportunity for them, but I think they had really strong parents that kind of pushed them through. We had one student that I will be the first to admit, when I met him at orientation day, I was like, wow, he's going to need a lot of additional support. And if you look up ACE in College and Richmond Times-Dispatch, there's an entire story about how successful he's been and what he's gone on to do, and just that career goals and aspirations. He blossomed. I mean, just bloomed in college in such a wonderful way. I think another thing is talking to your son. You said son, correct?
Yes, correct.
Talking to your son now about, like, you're going to go to college someday, you're going to go, or going to a trade school, or, making sure that college, he understands that college is somewhere he belongs. I had a student he's actually graduating this year. His first semester, he's like, I don't think I belong here. And I'm like, oh, yes, you do. I was like, you belong here. And that kind of became a tagline for us for the last 2 years of, you belong here. You belong on college. You belong on campus. And you have a place in this world. You have a place in this space. And so letting him know that college is a space that he can go to and go look at. One of the unique things about ESIT is that they have an education coach. So our students have that education coach, that one-on-one peer that goes with them to class. We had a student that would sometimes verbally shout out answers and not raise their hand, just that appropriate kind of classroom interaction. And their ed coach came up with ways to kind of, without having to call them out or anything, I think they did, she messed with their nose to kind of say, like, hey, this isn't a time to shout that out right now. Nobody else in the class realized what was happening, but that student was tuned in to their coach, and they were like, oh, I'll wait. And learning those social skills of how to do that. One story that really sticks out with me is this last cohort of students that we had coming in. We always tell families, here are the funding sources, like I just said before. And I said, well, ABLE accounts. And the mom's like, oh, my daughter has an ABLE account. I've been saving for college for her since she was 8 or 9, or, however long the ABLE had been around. And she's like, we're ready. And it honestly was the first time in my 5 years where I heard a parent talk about how they had been actively saving for their child to go to college. Because I think so many times as a parent, we get defeated and we feel like our child's not going to be accepted or able or welcome on a college campus. So we're not going to plan for that. And so this mom had been planning for that all along. and she knew that that was coming. And so I think that hit me because I have a daughter who has a lot of additional needs. I don't know what her story is going to be, but I'm constantly like, you're going to college. I don't know what that's going to look like, but you're going to get there. And so really, you know, I think kind of honing in and just talking about it, exploring those college campuses with him, let him seeing that these are opportunities, watching those videos of other students, the Spectrum series that I was talking about, you know, just finding examples of that. There is another resource on our website. It's called Work is for Everyone. And we have different highlights of different stories of individuals with different disabilities that are working. And, you know, it's amazing when you see somebody that looks like you or acts like you or you know, in a job and a profession that you want to be in. And so expose your son to that as well. So I'm excited. I cannot wait to see him on a college application in a few years.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Anyone else want anything? I know we're getting close, I think, on time or right at time. Is there any final questions?
We actually have half an hour on the schedule if anybody needs it. My question is, okay, what do you know about what supports there are for kids on campus if they're not part of the ACIT program, but they're in a full degree program?
Yeah, so I will speak more, I'm going to use more terms that specific to VCU, just with the SAO office. So all campuses have a disability support services office. And at VCU, it's called the SAO office. And that is a place where a student can go and they do an intake paper, or it's a Google form. It's an intake form. And they say, I have a disability and I need an accommodation. Okay. And then there is a process that they go through where they would turn in their documentation. That might be a medical provider's information. It might be a testing, copies of the IEP. And they have a counselor that will work with them through all of that as they put in their information. And then a accommodation letter is made. And some community colleges, they actually call it like an MOA, a memorandum of understanding. So, you know, knowing what your college, your campus talks about is really helpful, what they call it. But then that accommodation letter it's individualized for each student. So the student can then look at and say, you know, for instance, as Charlene had mentioned, you know, extended test taking time. That's a pretty standard accommodation, but it might be also extended time on an assignment. We've had students that have needed an accommodation of a quiet space to go take a test. And so most campuses have testing centers or somebody that can read the test to them to have a proctored exam. And so they might schedule to take their test outside of class time at a testing center for time and a half, and what that would look like for them. But then the SAO office, so each semester that can change. And it's also the onus, the responsibility is on the student. So the student can decide when to give that to that professor.
Thank you. No, I mean, I thought I was pretty sure they had to have something like that, but it's helpful to have it verbalized. Thank you.
Yes. And the professor will then work with you. And so there is that self-advocacy piece of you supply your accommodation letter and then work with a professor. And so some students may not feel that they need it in a particular class, and some students do feel they do. I always want to stress that a professor doesn't have to provide an accommodation until the student provides that accommodation letter. So if he doesn't know, they can't do it. And their professors are bound to not disclose that. So they can't be like, oh, well, you know, Sally over here needs extra time on her test today. You know, they want to give that respect and that space. So they can do that. And you can also go back and talk to your accommodations officer, counselor, they have different names, about like, hey, I really need, this isn't working, I need different things. You know, we've had students that have needed PowerPoints in advance so that they can take notes differently, or they might need a note taker in the class. So it really ranges depending on what's out there. So yeah, that's ask the university if you're looking at a college campus. Do they have a rich disability support offices? Is it one person for an entire campus, which you see sometimes? And so, you know, what does that look like? So yeah, Any other questions? Happy to help.
I have a question. How do you enter into the ECEIT? How do you, like get into that system?
ACET.
Oh, ACET. Yes, like, I'm horrible with acronyms today, clearly. Yeah, so we have students that are accepted. We do application periods. Typically, we release the application in around Christmas time. We'll open up applications between the fall of the program, and then they close in February, early March. And so it's a standard college application. We've modeled it based off of VCU and other college applications. We have additional questions that really tease out, like, what are your career goals? What does that look like? And then there is the documentation of like an IEP, your last IEP, any other documentation that you want to provide. And then recommendation letters. And so once the application is received, we have a team that looks through the applications and decide, are you a good fit for the program? Is the program a good fit for you? Is all of our documentation in? Do you match the guidelines to be in the program? And then we go through an interview process. This year was our first year where we did all of our interviews online through Zoom. And it's a panel interview. So we have the student on the call with 2-3 other staff members, and then a parent or caregiver goes into a caregiver interview where we just get to know a little bit more information. It's just kind of that one opportunity to kind of feel out some of those additional supports. What does family look like? How much has the family planned and thought about college? Are they ready for that step? Okay. And then we do something a little different now. We have what we call the day 2, and that's an opportunity for the student to be on campus. Pre-COVID, it was very interactive and a lot of fun, where we all had lunch at the dining hall, and then we all had opportunities to interact with different offices. We would go in and out of buildings. Sometimes our education coaches would drop by. Current students would join us for lunch, and then there was a work assessment component. And what that looked like is we created a work environment and had students work through certain tasks. It was more just a chance for them to kind of really feel out the college campus. Is that the right place for you? Is this what you like? We've had students go through all of it and they're like, I'm not ready for college. This is not for me. And we've had students that come through and are like, I'm ready, like, sign me up. And so then we'll move forward and we'll accept our cohorts. So we have, we just finished and closed all of our applications, and students finished their day 2 experience. And we have 4 students moving forward. That is still top secret information. So they're still getting acceptance letters. But we have 4 students moving forward that'll be receiving acceptance letters moving into this next cohort. So we're really
generally
excited.
How many do you have each year? Is that normal?
Yeah, so we it has fluctuated a lot over the years between funding sources in different areas there. We are prepared to support up to 10 students a semester, or 10 students a cohort. 5 seems to be a pretty good average that we've had. We've had some lower cohorts the last few years, and I think that just has different contributing factors involved. And we also want to make sure that we don't want families to be stuck with a bill. Like, if you start a program and then get stuck. So we really tease out, is this something you've thought all the way through? Because it is expensive, and we want families to be we're very aware of that. And we want to make sure families are aware of that too. Because I don't want it to hit billing and then to have to go to collections, and it's just not something I like to do. So we're really kind of over the top chiming in and, really teasing that out with families. So yeah. Yeah.
Other questions?
So at what age should the application be completed? At what age? My son is going to be 16.
Okay.
So
we applicants are 18 and older, and or if they're still like kind of finishing up that final year of high school. But yeah, so 18 and older. So when he or son was 18 or going out, kind of transitioning out of high school would be the year. But in the meantime, we have open houses events, usually in October, kind of coinciding with VCU's open house, and other programs. Highly look at if you're, up near Mason Life.
Mason, yeah.
And what programs near you. 16 is a great time to start seeing those campuses. Come sign up for the open house. will guess that ours will probably have some kind of in-person component by October. VCU is slowly announcing that they want the expression they're using is they want a robust campus environment in the fall. What that looks like will be still be determined, but sign up for college tours. Let him see those universities and those campuses. Go look at a community college campus. Go look at a four-year campus. Go look at, sign up for those chances. But VC, we do have an open house in the fall, and it's just a great chance to hear a lot of the same information again about what is the program. But you also get to, sometimes we've had students that come and be panel presentations, but then that one-on-one chance to really see, is this kind of something I want, and kind of planning for that. So, but yeah, and you can always look at the application. I think that's always a great tip. Pull down a couple different college applications, have him practice them now. Start looking at what his resume looks like, and how are those things doing? Practice doing college interviews. And it's never too early to start those conversations and to start that practice with him.
Are your services available out of VCU or other universities?
Services in the sense of like an ACIT program at other universities, or?
Yes.
Yeah, so back to that thinkcollege.net has a list of other programs, inclusive programs across the US. So in Virginia, there are 3. There's Mason Life, VCU, and then I'm blanking on the third one. I'm blanking on the third one.
It's okay, because we live in Manassas, so Fairfax, George Mason will be closer, so that's good.
Yes, but I think they only take 10 a year or something like that. Is that true, Rhonda? The Mason Life program?
Yeah, it's about that number. It's low numbers, just like ACIT.
Right, because it's so intensive.
Yes, yeah. And Mason Life also has an on-campus, I think, a residential component. So yeah, so I think that's a great opportunity if you're so close to Mason right now. If anything else, he's not graduated yet, not maybe eligible to apply for this next year, but he can start exploring it and seeing it. And then, come October, come down and check out VCU. Then he has this is what I really like. This is what I didn't like. This is, it's the great thing about colleges. I toured a lot. I imagine several of us on the call also toured a lot of colleges, what we loved, what we didn't love. I found a college that was up in the hills of Northeast Tennessee. So I walked out of my door every day to see mountains, and that became I had to have mountains to go to college. So it's kind of what works. But yeah, great questions. Keep them coming.
Jan, if I could chime in here, just want parents to really understand that yes, you're paying tuition, you're paying a price, and you're going to a college, but that doesn't necessarily mean that your child's going to graduate with a degree. You're working on life skills, you're working on social skills, and you're working on job skills and some academic skills. But going to college in these programs doesn't necessarily guarantee that you're going to get a college degree. So that's one thing that parents really need to look at when they're spending this kind of money on a program like this. There are other programs like through DARS and other Woodrow Wilson, things like that. But if that's what they want to do as a college experience, this is to help support for their child to have that experience.
Yes, that's very helpful. Thank you, Rhonda. Yeah, and we've had students that have come in and say, what's my degree? And, kind of helping, this isn't a degree program. And we currently actually have a student that is getting a certification on top of their certificate of completion with ACIT. He is taking all of these classes for credit. And so he will leave with it's a certification, as a certificate VCU created with Microsoft and a few other groups. And so it will be in that area. It's kind of a feeder program into Microsoft. And so, but that's just his career and his wheelhouse. And so he is actually passing all of his, he had a C at midterm, and he's up to like an A-, B+ for these first extra classes. And so he's going to keep moving forward with his certificate. But
yeah. Do your programs bridge or work with DARS with the individuals to help them for life outside of the program?
Yeah, so what that looks like is we incorporate DARS. If a family comes and starts the process of ACET and is not aware of DARS, we always really spend a lot of time. Highly encourage, we can't make that a prerequisite of admission, but we do really encourage them to get connected, because that's that longevity piece of when you finish ACET. You know, we've had students that weren't connected to DARS, and it just kind of was like, bloop, and it felt like this drop, this big cliff. And so what we have is we really want to connect you with DARS so that you have that longevity and all of those skills and that training and those things that we've learned in college, they can be put to work in that world of work. And so we always want to get families connected with DARS. If we have a family that already has DARS, we talk with them. You know, the DARS counselor, we keep in touch with them during that first bridge in phase coming on to college. And then DARS counselors join us for those team meetings every semester. And so we want to include them in those conversations. We've had DARS counselors, DARS counselors are deciding how much, if, and what that looks like in terms of what will DARS contribute towards ACET. And every counselor is a little different. And every office is a little different on how that looks. And so, and then afterwards, as the final team meeting is really employment driven in so many ways. And so that is that conversation of, you know, when you graduate, this is what this looks like for you. So for a student who has DARS, what that could look like is that, you know, you will then move into one of the DARS vendors. It could look like we have Job Connections, which is our next door program of sorts, is through VCU. And that might be a Jobs Connection counselor, job coaches actually attends that last meeting if we have one already lined up, and they can start that transition. They have a binder that the career side actually hands over to, you know, DARS or the vendors and different things, and what that looks like of, here's my resume, here how I learned best, here's kind of that one pager, and what that looks like. So we have some DARS counselors that we are really involved with, and we have lots of information that we can share with, and we have some DARS counselors that are there for those meetings, and we try to give them as much information as we can. It really depends, but we really have a strong relationship with DARS, and they're a big part of that. So
thank you for answering my question. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you everyone that came.
I was just saying thank you to everyone, because I know some people are having to leave. I see Cam getting ready. Hi, Cam. So any other questions before we shut down for the day?
I'm just very happy. I'm just very happy to know that resources like this are available. And thank you so much seeing you, Jan, in person. I'm so excited seeing you in person for the very first time.
Thank you, Princess. I know we have communicated for a long time.
Yeah, and because my son, I never thought that something like this is available. When I look at my my friends, their children, and I always think in my heart, there won't be a place for my son. So I'm so thankful that, because for me, it's not so much about getting a degree. It's about him getting life skills to be able to survive, and it's not about degree so much, but I want him to be successful in these little areas, which with listening to you guys has given me so much hope. And I've been writing down all this information so that I know that there are resources available for my son, that he's not ruled out.
Yeah, well, I'm so happy to hear that. Thank you. And you're right. There are those moments where we think as parents, like, my child doesn't have a place here. Where's this space belong? And to hear about ACET or other programs, it's like they're going to be there. And I mentioned before, my daughter, I think about like what is life going to look like her when I'm older, and across her lifespan. And so giving her all of those shots, and giving your son the best shot at how he's going to live his best life. Another resource too is we have a Facebook page. ACET has a Facebook page, and we share out a lot of resources specific to ACET, but we share out other programs and other great things that are happening and other opportunities. It's a great one to follow if you're on social media. We have a social media person now. Thank God it's not me anymore. And she is phenomenal at finding all of that information. And she does some great stuff. We also have a email. You can sign up on our website. We don't send out a lot of emails very often. It usually has a lot of information about open house events like that. But if there's other really great opportunities, we do use our listserv to kind of announce those things. So I think keeping your eyes open and talking about it and talking to your son about, you're gonna do great things, young man, and you have a place here. You belong here. That's always my takeaways. You belong here.
Okay,
Thank you
just a
guys so
reminder,
much.
I will be sending out a link to the recording. Jan, I would appreciate a copy of the slides so I can then convert them to PDF and send them out. And any other resources you want to share. I'll probably wait until Tuesday to send out everything, but thank you everyone for coming.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.